And all you can think is, did we just become best friends? Like that moment is irreplaceable. You can do that with, if you're selling plumbing parts, you can do that to the person across the table from you if you have the right information. So part of our job is find that information. When we looked at all of these autopsies had the same commonality. There was some nuance that no one understood. So that had to mean that all of these smart people have absolutely no idea why customers do business with them. That was a tough thing to swallow. But guess what? We've been measuring it for 8 years. It's totally true. Nobody knows. There's only a 30% chance that inside 3 years, the business that you bought will be solvent. How in the hell is that possible? But for a failure rate of 70% of some of the these are the smartest people we have, people that run businesses. These are intuitive, intellectual people. And how the hell do you explain that failure rate? Just didn't make any sense. So I started looking at what was being measured in due diligence. Well, it's like almost any business. You're measuring hard quant. And all the analysis that's done in these, you're really just measuring what we determine to be 5 things. It's who, what, when, where, and how. Who are our customers? What are they doing? When are they doing it? How are they doing it? That's stuff that you're probably knee deep in all the time. Who, what, when, where, how. Think about the analytics on your website, for instance. A very good, very easy way to think about it. You can see who's on for the most part. You can see what they're doing. You can see the pages they're going from page A to page B. You can see when they're on. You can see how they got there, what they typed in, where they came from. So here's a fundamental question. Why are they there? Go ask your friend or neighbor, or ask yourself, even though when you ask yourself, you're gonna answer it because of how your brain works. Why do people do business with you? Well, they trust us. Is that right? That's never happened. We measure this objectively with the qual method. Trust has never come up one time in over 400 studies as a reason that someone does business with somebody else. As a leader, right, which I think everybody in here is a leader, your job is to figure out why. Who, what, when, where, how, that's the job of a manager. Because who, what, when, where, how is worthless information when you put into consideration why. If you understand why things happen, everything in your organization becomes easy. If you know why people are coming in, you can increase it. If you know why they're not coming in, you can figure out a way to change it. The same part of your brain that you use to pick a job, pick a mate, buy a house, is the same part of your brain that you use when you're trying to figure out what to put on your sandwich at Subway. And any good salesperson knows if you talk about logic, you lose. The more you talk about logic in a sales conversation, the less money you make. And that's real. Physiologically, that's real, right? That's like a thing that good salesmen know. So if we know this, then we know that if someone has to think about an answer for a long time, that means it's rattling around and it's moving from the limbic system of the brain into the frontal lobe, which means we've forced them to use logic. And if you force someone to use logic, you lose the sale. Most value propositions at organizations they're laden with creative language, which the brain actually does not like. The brain does not like creative, flowery language. I don't care what your expository writing teacher told you in high school. It wants to be able to categorize and classify a piece of information inside of our head. And if it can do that, then you will remember it for almost ever. So if you can find a way to inject yourself and your company inside someone's head in an emotional, memorable way that uses objectivity, it's almost impossible for them to forget it. We solved the Henry Ford paradox, the innovation paradox, the faster horses thing. Well, here's why. Because what Henry was referring to was that if I ask people to innovate for me, it's not going to work. And he's exactly right. So in a survey, if you ask someone to innovate for you, expect failure, expect a faster horse. Why did anyone, one person or in the aggregate, why are people coming into our coffee shop? We have absolutely no idea. There's no way to figure that out based on their behavioral data. It's not difficult or tricky, it's impossible. You cannot look at the aggregate of someone's movements and ascertain why they did it. You can only create hypotheses. We cannot replicate a moment where someone makes a purchase. It's impossible. So we don't try to. So instead, what we do is we try to find out what's important to them. And if we can find out what's important to them, we can very easily reverse engineer that solution. Anyway, that's what we do all day. We look for what we call burning questions.